We're live. Welcome to another live coaching. Uh, did you sail this week? I did. I had 1 day windsurfing. I had 2 days on the water, 1 day surfing, 1 day windsurfing. We haven't had much wind here on Maui. I'm hoping that today is going to be good. I think it is. I can hear the wind in the trees. So I'm going to get on the water today. The 1 day that I did have on the water was kind of small waves, but and light wind, but fun. Hokipa, good for getting back into Maui. Windsurfing for me, I haven't been here since the spring. Did you sail this week? If so, what was it like? Where were you sailing? What were you working on? Hey, Axel. Yeah, it's at this time of year, there's some good conditions in Europe before it starts getting too cold and wintry, though I know some of you guys windsurf straight through the winter. So wherever you are, is it good for windsurfing at this time of year? Is it good for windsurfing in the fall? Soon, hey, good evening. Denmark is good at this time of year. October is good for Denmark. Good storms, westerly winds. It's a little bit colder. The days are a little bit shorter, but the wind is more consistent. Dom. Yeah, welcome. Did you guys sail this week? If so, how was it? Like I said, I had 1 day on the water. It was one kind of small day at Hokipa, and otherwise there hasn't really been much wind. Today, though, it looks like there will be wind. I'm looking out the window at the trees. I can see lots of movement in the leaves. Hey, Jörg, Ragnar, shoulder high waves sound pretty good. That sounds pretty fun. Ragnar, onshore 5'8". Hey, Thomas, Mark, John, Matt. Nice, Matt. What was the session like? Where were you sailing? What size? How was it? Yeah, it looked like today I'm gonna get some wind, so I'm really looking forward to getting on the water. I've been on Maui for over a week, and I've only had 1 day windsurfing, which was fine. I've got the Aloha Classic coming up, which I'm going to compete in, so getting ready for that. But I don't know, the forecast isn't great, so we'll see how it all goes. Alex, right on. Alex landed his first starboard tack back loop. Nice. Congrats. We've got a lot to go through today in the Facebook group. So I'm going to kind of jump into it. Let me load up the Facebook page and the other tab. We've got a lot of posts. It was a busy week in the group, which is great. So if you have a question, comment, concern, you can always post it in the Facebook group, but you guys know that. All right. I'm getting the Facebook group ready. If you, hey, Charles. Yeah, Charles, I saw your post. It's cool to see some pictures from different spots. I've always heard about sailing on the Great Lakes, but I haven't really seen much content from there. Oh, cool. Mark had good conditions in Tyree. That's nice to hear. I've never been to Tyree, but it looks awesome. It's somewhere that I'd like to go. Dave was also there. Were you guys competing in the event? If so, how did the competition go? Thank you, everyone, for supporting the stream. Your names are somewhere here. If you want to support the stream and sign up for the newsletter, you can do that through Patreon. I'm just trying to load up the Facebook group. All right. So here's the Patreon, and so basically you can support the stream. There's a newsletter, so I do articles, regular articles. So like, here's some lessons from the coaching we did in Denmark. Here's some lessons from an interview with Brad Gerlach. Here's an exclusive. It's just raw footage. It's just 30 minutes of just raw windsurfing in Handsome. And so this is a Patreon exclusive. So if you're interested in this kind of content and you want to support the stream, you can sign up for, here's an interview I did with Robbie Nash. You can sign up to the Patreon. It's just patreon.com/GrahamEzzy. And thank you everyone who has already signed up. All right, I'm going to load up the Facebook group. Hey, Mark, have a good week. Mark, what do you mean you did a triple elimination? I don't know how that works. Matt had a good session in Littlehampton. Max done a 4.7, some tacks. Nice. Do you feel so Matt was with us for the windsurfing masterclass in Denmark, and one of the interesting things for Matt was that he's a starboard tack windsurfer, born and bred starboard tack. Denmark was all port tack, and as you guys all know, so when you're sailing your opposite tack, it feels pretty awkward and difficult, and yeah, just all of that stuff. But Matt was a champ and put in the effort and did great. We sailed how many? I can't remember, Matt. How many different spots did we sail? 5 different spots in Denmark. It was crazy. But anyway, Matt, what I want to hear is when you got back to your home spots after that Portec experience, did it feel just way easier? Like, or did it feel the same? What was that like? Yeah, Philip. Hey, Philip. Philip's been charging in Handsome. I saw some epic pictures from you. Those were from not the last couple days, but those like down the line days. That was pretty awesome. Hey, Samuli. Yeah, epic video from Brandon Bay. I want to hear more about the trip. We're gonna go over your aerial later. Hey, Tomasz. Yeah, we had an epic trip, Matt and the group from the windsurfing masterclass in Denmark. Hey, Mika. All right, let's jump into the Facebook group. You guys know the drill. Comment, interrupt me. All right, Philip's just saying he had another down the line session with nuking wins. Awesome. Did you get any pictures? All right, let's get this. Let's get this rolling with the Facebook group. All right, so Mika posted this video from Cape Town. Nice big jump. Awesome. Good high five. Awesome. All right. Charles posted this photo sequence of Great Lakes fall conditions. So I've always heard that the Great Lakes are a good wave spot, but I haven't seen much footage of it. But here you can see, right? This looks like a lot of the other wave spots that people sail in Europe, on the Baltic Sea, maybe. So that looks fun. Charles is a longtime member of the community. He was on the Learn to Loop course. Yeah, awesome. How are your loops, Charles? You still looping? Thank you for sharing these photos. Look beautiful. Looks fun. All right, next up, we've got a question from Azel about preparation for forward loops. So he says, can you talk about preparation and the right takeoff for forwards? I think getting that right will make the trick for most. Getting it wrong, nothing will work. Yeah, I mean, there's more to the forward loop than the takeoff, but takeoff is important, right? How you start it is really important. A lot of moves, whether it's the forward loop or the back loop or anything in the waves, how you start it determines how you finish it. So if you want to land it well, then you need to start it correctly. So he posts this photo of Pons getting up for a forward and shows what he wants to show. He comes over the board and prepares for the jump, putting the rig forward. and sheeting out a little bit to get it across. Yeah, so it's like, I don't know if it's everything. Like, it's important to stand up tall. It's important to get that little sheeting out to help push the sail up. Like, what I say is you go small. So as you're going to the ramp, you're small. And then as you're going up the ramp, you go tall. And then once you're in the air, you go to a ball. So small to tall to ball. And that's sort of the sequence in the forward loop. So small as you're getting to the ramp, like tucked up, sailing tight, hunting stance. Then as you're going up the ramp, you're pushing off, extending everything, going tall, pushing your arms up, pushing your feet down. And then once you're in the air and doing the rotation, you go into your ball. You're pulling in that backhand, you're pulling up your feet, balling up. So small to tall to ball. And so this is part of the tall process, this photo. One of the mistakes that I see people make is that they're leaning back too much as they go into the forward, and leaning sort of like way back. And what you want is you want your body to be the axis of rotation. Because if you're leaning back, and I think this is what is like the key here that we're talking about. So the forward is it's a 360, right? And sometimes that 360 is more upright, sometimes it's it's on an axis. But however you are, your body should be the axis of rotation. So the rotation is happening around your body. What you don't want is that the point of rotation is somewhere around your feet and your head is on the outside of that circle of rotation, spinning around really, like, with all of that angular momentum. We got lots of engineers here. So tell me correct me. But anyway, so I think that this is what's going on here. So one of the common mistakes that I see is really leaning back in the forward, and then you get that head body whip. Then your head and the body is really traveling. Whereas you don't want your head and your body actually to travel very much. You're just sort of rotating, and the gear is rotating around you. You're that axis of rotation. And in order to set yourself up for that, you want to stand upright like we see pawns doing here. Because if you're leaning back and out and you're sheeting in, then your body is getting whipped around, and your head body is way on the outside of the rotation. So you really want to think about your body, like from your head to your feet, being as close to that axis of rotation as possible, and everything else rotating around it. So you don't actually have that much force on your body. And so one of the big mistakes is leaning back, leaning out, pulling in. The sail loads up, pulls you forward, and you have all this angular momentum on your body, on your head. But that is better than launching yourself forward like a somersault. So it's better to be making the mistake where you're leaning back but still rotating horizontally than to throw yourself like a somersault, because that's even farther away than the proper rotation. So whenever we're learning a move, there are different levels of mistake, right? And so when we're talking about one mistake, you want to always, it needs to be relative to what you're working on. So if you're throwing your body forward, then you want to work on bringing your body more back. But if you are putting your body back, then you want to think about putting your body more upright, like with this picture of pawns. But I think that sort of axis of rotation is a really key element to understanding the move. And so what you really don't want is that your head is on that like outside of the circle, flinging around. You want the gear, everything rotating around your body. So I hope that makes sense. Meanwhile, Matt says that he feels invincible now at home. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Charles now needs to follow up on the loop training. Hey, Alexandre. All right. So does that make sense? Does that make sense with the forward loop? I think that's kind of a key concept. There are a few other technical things that are happening here. By sheeting out, it allows, and pushing the sail up, it allows the sail to reposition. Like what you don't want is just to be like tucked up, tight, sheeting in, going off the ramp, and then just pulling in. Like you want to let the sail breathe for a second so you can kind of move the sail up and across into the wind, which then is a better position when you sheet in and you're pushing with that front arm and sheeting in with the backhand and going into that nice sideways rotation. It all works well. But I think thinking about your body as the axis, I think like if you're going to think about, there's lots of things you can think about on the takeoff, but two of the main ones that we see here are, getting that body upright so the body is the axis of rotation instead of leaning really far back, and then letting that sail breathe for a second, shooting out, bringing it across the body into the wind, which is the ideal starting position for the rotation. You don't want the sail like back sheeted in, gap closed, pulling. And then the other thing that we talked about here is small, tall to ball. All right, moving on. Dave asked a question about front fins on thrusters. He's on the pyramids and the quads, and he really likes the 1 degree K4 Ezzy fins. They loosen up the bottom turns. He wants roundhouse top turns rather than slashes. Yeah, so I find that the Ezzy K4 fins, which I was involved with developing, and I love these fins. I use the 2 degrees. I find that it depends on the tone that's in the boxes. For the taboos, 2 degrees is the right amount, I believe. And for the Quattros, I'm not sure what they're doing with the boxes now. Back when I was on Quattro, I think I was also using 2 degrees. But to be honest, I can't exactly remember. They help you initiate the bottom turn, and they also help with the roundhouse top turns. If you're having issues with the roundhouse top turns where you feel like the board is sliding more than you want, what you can do is you move the cutback fin, so just the cutback fin, so that the thruster fin on the cutback side farther forward. So you want to increase that space, which will then make that side hold better. So if you're thinking about fin clusters, your rear fin and your thrusters, or your rear fins if you have a quad, the wider the cluster, the more it's going to grip. The closer the cluster, the more it's going to pivot. So the looser it's going to feel, the stiffer it's going to feel if you spread it out. If you have the ability to move the fins in the boxes, which I know some boards don't have that ability, unfortunately, it's a great way to tune your sailing. Like I adjust my fins a lot, and moving the fins even just a centimeter makes a difference that you can feel. And so often I'll have, from a lot of conditions, I'll have the cutback fin about a centimeter farther forward than the bottom turn fin. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. And the reason that I do that is exactly what Dave is asking about here, because I want that cutback rail to really hold. I want that cutback rail to really hold in the water so that I can do roundhouse carving cutbacks. I don't want it to slide. I want to be able to push on it, and I want the rail to stay in the water. And having that cutback thruster farther forward does that. And so having an asymmetric thruster setup, so right, your fins are not, the two thruster fins are not in the same place, is something that you can do, and something that I recommend doing if you're looking for these kinds of turns. All right. Next up, we've got this this post from Truls about some two different bottom turn pictures, and one from Kai Lenny and one from Bjorn. So this is a very interesting post, and I like this discussion. But the main caveat, or the main thing I want to say, is that I think that you can't tell very much about technique from these photos. It's interesting. The discussion is fun. But I don't know if there's anything that you can take away for your own windsurfing from this discussion. But it's definitely interesting. There's something weird about this photo with Kai. Like his body position is a little bit strange, and I think there's something. I think there are a few things that you can't, because we can't see the wave because we're looking at it from this angle. We can't really tell what's going on, and it's not a very powerful wave. Like you can see that the bottom. So this is Hokipa. The bottom of the wave is a little bit choppy. It's kind of flat, which means that it's not. There's not a lot of power in the wave. There's not much for him to bottom turn on, for him to lean on. And so like my feeling is, looking at this photo, is he's doing this turn because the photographer is there. It's not necessarily where he would normally turn, or it's a day where there's just not a lot of power, compared to this photo from Fiji where Bjorn's a little bit in front of the power, but this wave has a lot more power. So very different setups, and it's hard with this photo because we can't see the wave. So we've got these little clues about what it looks like, and this chop, I think, makes it look like more of a wave than maybe it actually is. And then the other thing that's confusing is the foot to knee angle. Like, I think that his foot is parallel with his thigh. If we were to draw the lines of where his foot is, I would say the foot comes here and the thigh goes here. So it's not that this knee is being angled in, but it also kind of looks like the foot is coming like this and then the thigh is going this way, in which case the knee would be way angled in. But I'm pretty sure that's not what's happening here. Like if I look at his body and I look at the board, I mean, we can't see it exactly, but I'm pretty sure that the foot is on this angle and the knee is on this angle. So they're in line. It's kind of like a little bit like a lunge position, but it's not that the knee is pushed in. All right, I'm going to just say a few quick differences between these two bottom turns. But again, I do not think that there's much that you can take away from these. The discussion is kind of interesting, but there's not a lot you can take away. So first of all, they're on very different boards from each other. So Bjorn is on stiff, big, flat rockered starboards, and Kai is on very surfy quattro shapes with lots of rocker, really soft rails. So that just really different boards to begin with, and very different waves. So like this, as we already said, this wave from Hokipa, it doesn't have a lot of power. Hey, Rich, doesn't have a lot of power. There's not a lot going on. You can just see that here. Whereas, I mean, this is in Fiji, in Cloudbreak, this is a super powerful wave. Very different kind of situation. Bjorn has a lot more weight on his front foot. Kai is very back foot pressure. So whenever you see like a straight leg and a bent leg, then pretty much all the pressure is on the bent leg, right? So Kai is very back foot pressured here. Bjorn is has a lot more forward pressure, and you can also see that with the board. So one of the things that I think you should do is whenever you're evaluating bottom turns, don't look at the rider, just look at the board, because what is important is what the board is doing, not what the rider is doing. And there's different ways to get the board to do it. And I want you to be thinking about what the board is doing, not necessarily what the body is doing. And then your body will figure out ways to make the board do that. And you want the board on the rail. And so if we look at Bjorn, where he's got the board on the rail. It's like not too far back. It's not pushing water, whereas Kai's a lot more back. It's less on the rail. It's sort of like digging the tail here, right? Like he's not as much on the rail as Bjorn is. Like Bjorn's really carving here, whereas Kai's like a bit more in the back. He's pushing water. It's a lot more back foot. Then the nose is really sticking up, and I don't think this is really like a defining bottom turn for Kai. I went through after looking through after this post, I looked through his Instagram, and he actually doesn't really have many windsurfing bottom turns on his Instagram. I went back a couple years trying to find some stuff, and I couldn't. But I found there was a YouTube video of Kai riding on the north shore of Oahu, which are waves that are more powerful generally than Hokipa. So it's more similar to like a cloud break style. And then he's got almost the same position as Bjorn. I'll post that. Let me see if I can do that while we're. So here's a bottom turn from John Florence, just showing that it's again that similar position. Yeah, here's the Kai bottom turn from the North Shore. So I'm going to post that here, and so you can see. I'll write a little bit here. Here is an example of a bottom turn of Kai on the North Shore, with waves that have more power, more similar to the Fijian wave that Bjorn is riding. But anyway, I don't really think there's a lot you can take away from this. I think this photo is kind of weird. There's something that looks kind of weird. I think there's a bit of an optical illusion, like you think his foot's coming here when I think actually it's more going here, and you can't see what the wave is doing, and he's not really on the rail. He's pretty far back. It's like, I would say this is not the position you want to be in. This is closer to the position you want to be in if you're sailing down the line conditions, but also this is going to be less offshore than this. Like this is super offshore wind, more powerful wave, cleaner wave, just different. There's a lot. It's hard. You just can't compare these two pictures. And I don't think there's a lot to learn from these pictures, except I guess what to learn. I mean, it's interesting to have the discussion. So I like the discussion. And I think what to learn, the takeaway is to really focus on the board. So when you're evaluating bottom turns, evaluating photos, look at the board first and foremost. You want to see what the board's doing. Is it on the rail? Is it way back on the tail? Is it pushing water? What's going on with the board? And I think that's also a good rule. Whenever you're watching wave sailing footage, watch the board. Try and really just focus on the board if you can. If the board is in the video, really focus on the board. I think that's a good exercise, and you can really also evaluate wave sailing better by just looking at the board rather than looking at the sail or the body or anything else, because it's the board that matters. And then for your own technique, if you start thinking more just about the board and what the board is doing, that will also make you windsurf better. Or wave sail better. We've got a lot of new members this week. I think we have like 80. Well, Thomas, I'm saying just watch the board. Don't watch the head, just watch the board. Because I want to just see just watch the board, because the board is what matters, and nothing else really matters, right? Like the point of everything, the point of what you do with the sail, the point of what you do with the body is to make the board do what it's supposed to do. So rather than watching like some of these other things that then are leading to what the board does, watch what the board does. And that's like the outcome, that's the goal. And so like sometimes I feel like people get too stuck on sort of the pieces of the puzzle rather than the picture of the puzzle. So like trying to get the sail laid down, whereas it's about what the board is doing, not about laying down the sail in the bottom turn. And so if you're used to thinking about just what the board is doing, the body and the sail become a means to that end. And you don't want one of those means to incorrectly become the goal, right? Like, which I see all the time. Getting the sail laid down, for example, is a goal that some people have on the bottom strokes. But and if that is your goal, don't feel bad about it, but just I want you to shift your focus more to what the board is doing and think about the board carving, and that will help you improve. All right, we have a lot of new members to the group this week. I think we've got like 80 new members, so welcome here. If you have a friend who would benefit from the Facebook group, invite them to join. It's great to have more people. More people leads to a richer community. I want us to, this has been primarily wave sailing focused, but I want to offer more freestyle and free ride content as well, because I know that there's a lot of demand for that from you guys. So yeah, let's bring your friends in. Let's grow the group. Hey, Greg, welcome to the live stream. Nice, you had a good Cornwall session. Tomasz is saying, but how do you get the board to do what it should do? That is the tricky part. Well, the first part is just focusing on the board, and not focusing on something that's not important, like the body or the sail. So just by watching the board, and when you're watching video, so like Tomasz, for example, you're in the Patreon, which we already talked about, and so if you want to support so if for anyone that's in the Patreon, here's a good exercise: is go through this. So this is a exclusive Patreon exclusive video, and it's just 30 minutes of raw sailing from one of my sessions in Denmark. And what you can do, it's a good exercise if you're in the Patreon, is when you're watching this footage, just watch the board, just watch what the board is doing, and then that you can evaluate the waves that way, and sometimes the waves will maybe look better or worse if you're just looking on the board. But that, I think, is really good training. You can see, how active it is, whether it's rocking rail to rail, what's going on. I think it's just a really good exercise. So if you're in the Patreon, and you have the time, you want to do an exercise, watch this video, but just focusing on the board, just looking at what the board is doing, and yeah, so that's a good exercise. And then hopefully what that translates to on the water is really thinking about what the board is doing. All right, so here's a thread for questions that are introductory questions to wave sailing, because we talk about a lot of very advanced stuff on this channel, and not everyone is advanced, and sometimes even people who are advanced, they have a question that maybe they feel like they can't ask because it's not advanced enough, and that's not the case. So I want to really create a safe space. I'm going to do this somewhat regularly, having these introductory threads about wave sailing questions. And so, all right, I'm going to just go through and answer them now. So Hans says, what is, according to your experience, the most suitable skill level or other prerequisite to start wave sailing? Apart from the motivation, I'm looking for general answers and real life experiences. I've taken my wife in the waves once. She can water start and sail in the straps, but she still feels like she lacks the required confidence or skills. Hope to get my daughter in the waves in a couple of years as well. Any experience how to prepare her without forcing her are also very welcome. She's very motivated. Cool. Great question. I think the number one thing is water starting. So you have to be able to do quick water starts easily. Because if you're in the waves and you're trying to get the sail positioned and you're not very comfortable moving the sail around, it's bad recipe, because then the waves are hitting you and you get knocked off balance. So confident, fast water starts are very important. One thing you can do to practice that is in a flat water spot, have just have the rig in kind of random positions and then try and get it into a water start position as quickly as possible. I think that that's a good exercise to do. Second is swimming. You want to be confident swimming. If you're in the waves, you want to be confident swimming. Jennifer says that body surfing is a great way to get confident, and surfing as well, but body surfing. And that's really, I think, a good bit of advice. So you learn how to dive under the waves, you get used to kind of how the waves are. I think knowing how to jibe is helpful. I was in the waves. Hey, Steen. I was in the waves before I could jibe. I had a session at Hokipa, like a whole season at Hokipa before I could jibe. And it's okay, but you end up getting pounded more than if you can jibe. So knowing how to jibe so you can get out of tricky situations is helpful. And then knowing the safety positions as well, I think is useful. So you want to always have, so we talked about this in Denmark, Hans, you want the tip of the mast pointed into the wave and the left sleeve pointed into the wind. And you can stay in that position forever. But being able to get in that position quickly, I think is really useful. Doing a bit of surfing, getting into the waves, not on a windsurfer is also, I think, good, just to get used to them. Body surfing or surfing, boogie boarding even. Yeah, and then being able to water start well and move the gear around in the water. All right, next up, we got a question from Henry. I've been wave sailing for 1 season. I sailed at a beach break. When I surf, I can see the wave coming and can position myself well to catch the wave. But with wave sailing, I'm finding it hard to see the wave. I thought maybe I should go out and drop my sail a little way out from the break and watch other wave sailers, anyone with pointers for how to see the wave coming and how to position better. So seeing the waves is a skill, right? And you get better at seeing the waves and reading the ocean farther out the more you do it. Depending on how crowded your spot is, I don't know where you're sailing. Where are you sailing, Henry? You can go into a stall position. So you've turned around, you're on the outside, but coming back into the beach and stall into the wind. Some people call this like a parked position. So your board nose is pointing straight into the wind, and then you're just kind of chilling with the sail and not moving. And this is a great exercise. So this is one of the essential skills for wave sailing. One of the things I've been doing is putting together a list of essential skills for wave sailing, and this is on there. And then you just look over your shoulder. You want to look over both shoulders because sometimes the swell is coming from a little bit different directions. And you can just see kind of what's coming behind you. It's similar like with surfing. And it's easier, the farther in you are, the easier it is to read the waves, the harder it is to get priority. So if your spot's not very crowded, you can chill like that, stall pretty close to where the waves are breaking, and then you can see it and catch the waves. You're just a little bit farther out from where the longboarders are sitting or the stand-up paddlers are sitting. If there are more windsurfers at your spot, then that is harder to do. And so you've got to go farther out to catch the waves. And then it's just, a process of learning how to read the water. You're looking for the lines in the water. But I would maybe try and do it kind of gradually. So you're trying to catch the waves just outside, like where the surfer would line up. And then even if you don't have priority, maybe just like catching a few and just riding them in without getting in anyone's way, and then going a little bit farther out, and a little bit farther out, and gradually learning how to read the water. Chris asks, do you rig the same sail size for wave sailing as you would for flat water, given the same wind strength? No, I think a lot smaller. I think on flat water, you want like a big sail, so you're powered up and flying around, whereas oftentimes in wave sail, it depends on it. I think flat water, I'm going to rig a bigger sail. There's different kinds of wave sailing. So the more onshore it is, the bigger sail I'm going to have relative to the wind strength. So like for offshore wave riding, I'm going to have a much smaller sail than what I would do free riding, because if it's offshore, I don't even want to be planing when I'm going out, because that means I'll have too much power when I'm on the wave. But it depends, right? It depends what the wind direction is relative to the wave. Ruth says, how do you position yourself to catch a wave as a traditional wave spot that is breaking on shore? From a first-time perspective, it is a certain point in a jibe. What point of sail is optimal? The only waves I've encountered are wind over tide, choppy swell, 90 degrees across the wind on the BC coast. So how do you catch a wave? So you need to be moving in order to catch the wave. So you want to be moving a similar speed to the wave so that you can catch it. If you want to be traveling, it depends how fast. If the wave is moving really fast, then you want to be traveling in the same direction as the wave. If the wave is moving more slowly, you want to be moving more across the wave, because otherwise then you'll get out in front of it too easily. So it depends on the speed of the wave. And so most places you're probably going to be moving across the wave. So you're moving sort of like across the wave rather than just in the same direction as the wave is moving. Does that make sense? This is a good question. I wonder if other people have any other comments here. John is asking, do you think riding inside, or JD Windsurfing is asking, do you think riding inside a tube is possible with a windsurf rig? I do not know what that means. What does that mean? All right. Alessandro says, is there in Europe a best place and period to start learning the intro to waves? I'm looking for a clinic. So I think that, as Axel says, Viano do Castelo is a good spot. I think it's a very good spot. I know a lot of people have learned there. The problem, it's not really a problem, but one issue is that it's starboard tack wind, and most other wave sailing spots in Europe are port tack. And yeah, but I think Tenerife is a pretty good place to learn. The Harbor Wall. I think the Harbor Wall in Tenerife is a very good place to learn, and there's clinics that are taught there. I have done clinics there in the past. I don't know if I will in the future. There are clinics taught by Colin Dixon there and some other people as well. So I would probably say Tenerife or Viana are some of the best places to get into wave sailing. I'm trying to think if there's somewhere else that I would recommend that's consistent and accessible. If I think of something, I'll post it here. Morocco, maybe. I know that Morocco is not Europe, but it's accessible from Europe. Actually, Morocco is definitely in there. Okay, so you guys are all saying he means getting barreled. I thought he meant like riding in like some kind of like inflatable tube or something, like I don't know, like one of those like donut things that people get towed in behind a boat. Can you get barreled on a windsurfer? Yeah, I mean, so Josh Angulo was apparently barreled at Jaws a long time ago. I've had some moments at Jaws where I feel like I'm getting barreled on my windsurfer, where I'm just racing like crazy, trying to get out of this thing, and feels like getting barreled. I mean, I don't know how, not very deep in the barrel, I guess. I don't have any photos of that stuff, but Kai Kechadorian one time was in the channel and said it looked like I was getting barreled from his view. I've had a few barrels without the sail where I'm kind of leaning, like smaller waves, not Jaws, just pretty small waves where I'm kind of out of the straps, leaning the sail forward. But I don't know if you would really count that. It's not very deep in the barrel. I think on massive waves, yeah, it's kind of possible, but in general, I think windsurfing is not about getting barreled. We have, instead of barrels, we have jumps. That's kind of how I look at it. Hey, Bart. Max. All right. Luis says, how do you handle the sail while wave sailing? I went quite small waves the other day, 1 to 1.5 meter, and experienced that when I'm coming back to the top of the wave, I lose all the power in the sail and simply fall on my back. So is like, what was the wind direction relative to the waves? Was it onshore or side shore or side off? Because that depends on the technique. Generally, you want to think about, you can think about the bottom turn when you're getting into the bottom turn like a jibe, like a carving jibe. You want to be going fast. You want to then open up the sail, get on the rail. It's important to sheet out as well in this turn, in the bottom turn. But the wave direction or the wind direction matters for how you're going to do it. All right, Susan is saying our wave spots are on Lake Ontario. Wind conditions are always onshore or side on, mostly onshore. Never side shore or side off. What are the entry level moves to work on in such conditions? I enjoy the jumps going out. I think they're probably great for back loops if I dare try. Coming in, I don't really know what to do except jibe down a swell. Okay, so yeah, for jumps, work on tail grabs. Tail grabs, so you're hooked in, take your backhand off, grabbing the tail of the board. Great exercise. Great exercise. Tail grabs. Work on tail grabs on the way out. On the way in, I'd work on backside wave riding. Great question. So like on the way out, work on tail grab jumps. Your backhand off and tail while staying hooked in. On the way in, work on backside wave riding. So great conditions. Cool. I'm going to go through these. I'm going to type out some more answers because not everyone is maybe watching the live stream, although you should be. If you're not, why not? Adrian up next. He wants to help beginner sailors, intermediate sailors, and he says, all right, take out a floaty board. He's not talking about in the waves, just for flat water. Take a floaty board, big board, and a small sail. Work on your sail body 360, sail 360s, flare jibes, fast tacks. Yes, I can't say yes enough. Adrian, 100% yes. I love this. Yes, this is huge. And, really works on ducking the sail, getting the basic foundation for jibing. Take a big board. It can be 150 liters and a small sail, like a 4-2 on a day can be not that windy even, or if there's no wind even, take 4-7, whatever, on this big board. And you work on your heli tacks, work on flipping the sail, like duck jibe style, sail 360s, just work on your jibes. I see a lot of people trying to learn how to jibe who are missing some key fundamental skills. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that. But instead of trying to learn how to do the carve jibe on their small gear, what they need to do is go get a 140 liter board, 150 liter board, and a 4-2 or a 4-7, and work on their jibes on that gear before trying to do it on their free ride board or their small board, where they're trying to learn these carving jibes, but they don't have the fundamentals. And I think that's one reason why people get stuck learning jibes for 10 years is because their straight line sailing progresses, and so they get off that learner gear, those huge boards and the small sails, and they're used to going fast and they can sail fast in a straight line, but they don't have the fundamentals for the jibe. And so then it's almost impossible then to learn the jibe if you don't have those fundamentals. But they try, and that's why people spend 10 years learning how to carve jibe. And so what you want to do is, instead of doing that, get some time on a big board, and I'm talking big, 140, 150 liters, and a small sail, and I'm talking small, 4.2, 4.7, and work on that. And okay, even if you can jibe, it's still, this is a great exercise. It's something that I think is worth doing a few times a year, if not more. You work on your heli tacks, you work on the sail 360s, and as the Facebook user is saying, sorry, Facebook's not telling me who you are, is that it's fun. It's fun. Yeah. So not only are you really improving your skills, that transfers over into the wave riding, it transfers into the freestyle. There's huge transfer. It's also fun. It's just fun to do. So I really recommend doing this. Is huge. This is one of the key things that you can do to improve your windsurfing. All right, Bart's got a question. I was getting more height on my jumps yesterday. One floaty pointing up, one with soft landings, but I had some very hard landings too. How do you avoid flat landings? By leaning back more. So if you're doing the floaty jumps, the more you lean back, and you want to think about landing with the tail of the board like this rather than like this, because then it just kind of carves. It's not carving, but sort of like pokes into the water, gives you a soft landing. You also want to make sure that your feet are kind of tucked up, and then you can use your feet, if they're tucked up, to sort of help arrange the board position like vertically, so that you come down tail first, and you can kind of lean back, and then also you can sheet out on your landing, because if you're really sheeting in, and then that can pull the board forward, and then you land hard. All right, we've got a post from Samuli from Brandon Bay, going for the high five and getting an aerial. Look at that. Boom, lands it back in the wave. Aerial to floater. Awesome. And this is a really yeah, this is great. I love this. And well, there's a lot of things I love about this. One, just awesome Samuli, right on. Way to go for it and charge. And two, that this is how you learn aerials, by building from the high five, because the aerial is a high five more than it is a jump. And so you start like this, and like, this is awesome. I know that it's not super high, but it's awesome aerial. And the way to go higher is to build from here. And I see a lot of other people trying to jump off the lip, and they maybe are getting more height, but they go way off the back of the wave. And that's actually, even though they're getting more height, is a lot farther away from an actual aerial. And so you have to kind of unlearn that. So this is the direction that I want you to go, because this is, you build from here. So you start with these small aerials that are high fives, building high fives, because the aerial really at its core is just a high five. And it's how you're positioning the board and how you're getting that push from the lip that determines the height. And when you're evaluating aerials, height is important, sure, but also how far in front of the wave you land is also pretty important. But right on, this is awesome, Samuli. I love it. Boom, right in that little corner pocket section. Awesome. Looks like you had a really good trip. These conditions look amazing. Cool. Do you have any more footage from the trip? What an awesome, I love your face. Look at that smile after. Whew. Nice. So just to answer Bart's question, he's saying, so for the jump to lean back over the back foot, not back into the wind. Both. So what I mean for landing on the tail is that you're leaning more towards the back foot. But for the floaty jumps, you also do want to be leaning into the wind. And that also helps you have a softer landing, because then the sail is more like a parachute. So you're not dropping as fast. So both. Samuli asks, how about security? I don't know if I understand what you mean. Tell me more. All right. Moving on. All right, Samuli, let me know what you mean. I mean, this is awesome. Let's just watch this. Let's just watch this again. I want to know what you mean by security, because I'm not sure if I understand the question. Oh, not hurting yourself. So Samuli says, how about not hurting yourself? I think it depends on how you are worried about hurting yourself. I mean, I think if you build up like you're doing, I think the risk of injury is really small. And so when you're trying to jump like too high rather than using the building blocks, I think that's when injuries can happen. But like how you're doing it, it looks awesome. You know, you're going for a high five. You're getting that feeling of, okay, you're hitting it with speed and it's launching you in the air. And so you can, you know, if you want to do more aerial, so then the trick is going fast and then hitting it with the nose of the board. Instead of pointing back out to sea, the nose of the board is pointing down the line or even in front of the wave, like you're doing here. And that then launches it up into the air and you're able to come over. And what is great about this is, because you're not anticipating it, you're not pushing off with your legs, which then can disconnect you from the wave and actually make it that then you don't have that power of the wave pushing you. So like really the power of the wave is grabbing you and then throwing you. And so you could come a little bit more under the lip. So like the next step would be to come a little bit more under the lip. So like positioning that high five just a tiny bit. I mean, it's hard to see actually from this video. I didn't know if I would change this. Like I think it has to do with the section. So this, if you have more of a curly section and you do the exact same thing, you're going to get more air. I was going to say you could position a little bit more under the lip, but maybe not. Looking at this again, because you don't have such a curl. It's a, you know, the lip isn't this shape. It's a little bit more like this shape. So you don't have that space actually to come under it, which would then give you more projection. So having the shape of the wave is super important for what's possible on the wave. And so if you want more height, you have to search out different sections. But awesome. I love it. Awesome. I want to see more footage from your trip. All right, everyone. I think that is it. We are all caught up. Thank you for posting in the group. Thank you, everyone, for supporting the coaching. These are everyone that is supporting these live streams. You can support by joining the Patreon. There's a lot of information here, articles, exclusive videos. So you can sign up, patreon.com/GrahamEzzy. And otherwise, I hope you guys have a windy week. I'm going to get on the water today. It's it looks like the first kind of solid day since I've been back. I had one day, but then the wind died after a little bit. So I'm going to get on the water myself. I've got some boards to test, and I'm just jonesing anyway to get in the water. So I'm going to get my stuff ready and spend as much time as I can on the beach, because I think the wind is kind of going to leave us again here in Hawaii. Have a good windy week. I'll see you in the Facebook group. Have fun until next week, Sunday, when I will see you then. Oh, one more thing. Next week, Sunday, I'll post this in the group as well. But next week, Sunday, I'm planning to bring in a guest who is a sports scientist. So get your fitness questions ready. I'm going to do a post in the group so you guys can post your questions on that thread. But I'm letting you know now so that you can start thinking about it. All right, everyone, take care. Goodbye. Have a good windy week.